Captains of Industry, brought to you by Airtel.
Hello and the warmest welcome to Captains of Industry. There was a time when property outperformed the JSE consistently. However, the recession has put a damp on the market, with house prices now depressed and also interest rates set to drop further. Property as an investment doesn't look so attractive after all. Well, the jury's still out on this one, but it seems as though there are fresh opportunities. We know that South Africa, for one, is a developing country where the middle class is growing, and for the first time, people can actually own homes. Tapping into this human emotion seems to be what's defined the way Eskel Jawitz runs his real estate company. He joins us tonight as our captain of industry. He's the chairman and founder of Jawitz Properties. Welcome, Eskel Jawitz. Thanks so much for your time. Now, you founded the company around 1969. It's effectively 42 years old. In hindsight, would you have done things differently? Would you have chosen another career path?
No, I don't think I would have chosen another career. I've really enjoyed it. I went to see a house this morning and I said to the seller, what I love about my business is that after 42 years I can still go see a property and say, great, it's a lovely, lovely property.
Being hands-on to that extent, because I know that you've handed over the reins to your son, why are you still so involved?
I think I'm involved for two reasons. I think there's a need to be involved. I don't know what people do when they retire. 3, I think I can still contribute. 4, there's a hell of a lot of things that need to be done. And I think I understand our business, and I think I've got a lot to offer and can still make a difference.
But you know, as chairman, somebody would say yours is oversight, it's strategy. You shouldn't be showing homes. That's the job of the real estate agent. Why are you getting your hands dirty at that level?
I don't, well, first of all, I would like to say not getting our hands dirty when it's dealing with property. I don't show homes. I don't sit on show day. Not because of anything else, I just don't do that. And I haven't done that for years. But I find that we're a people-orientated business. We deal with people irrespective. You talk about captains of industry. We deal with people who are heads of huge corporations. And yet when it comes to selling their own home, it's as if they don't know what the next step is. And they become emotionally involved. And one of the reasons why I'm involved, I always say that every seller is in the middle of the circle, so to speak, whirling around, trying to sell his home and wondering what's going on. I'm on the outside of the circle looking in, and I can, whilst I'm involved, but I'm not emotionally involved, and I think I can bring a degree of rationality which hopefully the sellers can relate to, and sometimes the buyers. And it's in that context that I do believe that I still make a difference.
Are people rational at this time? Because I know that we all sell our homes for different reasons. You want to move on, you want to immigrate, you want to experience some kind of change, whatever the reason is. And then you say, well, I've invested so much in my home, I deserve to make a profit on it. And then the market has turned against you, but you're still insisting that you want some kind of value recognized in the whole thing. How do you inject that kind of rationality?
Loretta, it's a very good question. We discussed it at one of our sales meetings the other day, and you mentioned it, selling your home. The difference between a seller and a buyer in this particular market, and there was an article in the paper the other day that sellers aren't still accepting where the market is, but there's a reason for it. When you as a seller, you're selling your home, you've lived in there, you've cried in there, you've laughed in there, you've really experienced life in that home, and you're emotionally involved. The buyers who are buying, they're buying a house and they're going to turn it into their home. And that is where the rationality or the lack of rationality or the emotion comes in, which is totally understandable.
10 years ago, you rebranded the company. You got your 2 sons involved at an executive level. You've corporatized the business. It still has a family element, but it's not a family business anymore. Just explain to us that journey.
I think that's a very important point that you're raising. It is, in a sense, it's still a family-owned business. My son's in it, my elder son, my other son went to America for various reasons. And it's still a family-owned business, but we decided it's no longer about me. It's no longer about Eskel Jawitz. And Herschel was in, and we have another partner as well, and we have management. And therefore, what we had to do to cope and to adapt to changing circumstances, we had to corporatize, as you said, but what's important, get that infrastructure of corporate, but at the same time, retain the family values of being a family, not only in the bloodline sense of the word, but we are a family. In the overall sense of the word, the people that we work with, we see every day. We are a family in the broader sense of the word.
Where's your objectivity in that sense? Because when you've got your son as CEO and you as chairman, there's a level at which you've got to deal with each other based on the technicalities of what the spreadsheet says, what the growth path is, divergent views. Is there a point where you think to yourself, I can't take my son on like this, or he shouldn't disrespect me like this, I'm his father?
There are a number of aspects, I think, that you've raised. I've never been an academic. I'm a salesman. When people now fill in forms and they say, what are you? I don't say I'm a director of companies. I say I'm an estate agent. That's who I am. That's what I am. My son and others, they understand this market far better, I think, than I do. And consequently, it's not a question of combat. It's a question of that I think Herschel, through his ideas and his leadership qualities, is helping to take this business to the next level. I am still contributing in a sense to that next level. A watching brief. Herschel phones me quite often and says, Dad, what would you do? What should I do? Which is, for me, which is very, very important. And the one thing that I'm particularly proud about is that whilst my son is more corporate oriented, he's accepted and he lives the family values, and he still believes in the importance of people and the importance of doing things right. So I think I'm very, very fortunate. And incidentally, I must make the point, when we appointed him CEO, it wasn't a bloodline succession, it was ability, and the ability to take this company forward.
Your assessments of South Africa right now, because I think running this company for over 42 years, you've seen the best and the worst of the country. We're living now in a democratic era. We've got the rising black middle class. We're also told that this is also a highly indebted class, but an aspirational class, and people who really approach this issue of home ownership even more emotionally and viscerally than many other people do in the world. It's not even a question of the dignity of owning a home. It's overcoming the indignity of having been denied that right for the longest time. You have to tap into that. How do you see the country? How do you see this rising middle class? How do you deal with them?
I think, again, I'm saying to you, people are our business. And one of the successes, I think, of our company is that we've always put people first, without getting politicized. I think it was ridiculous for people to expect 1994 was going to wipe the slate clean and create a whole new environment. And you have to understand that we're dealing, as you say, with people who originally weren't allowed to buy properties. I mean, you talked to me about a milestone. One of the best things that happened in this country was 1994. For 3, 4, 5 years prior to that, we had to resort to all sorts of subterfuges like company formation, CC formation, to allow people to buy property, which was really, it wasn't pleasant, and it wasn't dignified, it wasn't the right thing to do. If you understand this, and you understand that people are buying homes for the first time in their lives, it's important for us, again, I'm repeating myself, to understand it, point them in the right direction, sit with them, tell them what it's all about, tell them what their obligations are. In other words, it's disclosure, understanding, and putting them first. Understanding their fears, understanding their needs, understanding their wants.
Rationality again comes up as a topic, because we're told, when you look at the index in South Africa, consumer index, highly indebted public, the banks don't know what to do, they're being urged to loosen up the purse strings, but everybody's in debt. I'm in debt, I'm one of those, okay? And you look at what's led to the credit crisis in the world, and it's a subprime problem in the United States, where people who actually didn't qualify for credit were being urged to take on credit for all sorts of philosophical reasons. We're really scared that South Africa shouldn't move in that direction, and you're somewhere in between, tapping into that emotion, but also having to deal with the reality of what is doable and what is not doable.
A number of years ago, 20, 30 years ago, I fired somebody for trying to force somebody to buy a property when I didn't feel that that person could afford that property. I also once got lambasted by a client because I dared to say to this person, are you sure you can afford to buy this house? And I want to tell you, they threw their toys out and dumped all over me, and I'll never ever ask that person that question, any person that question again. Affordability, everybody's got to make up their own minds. The problem that we're having with indebtedness and affordability, 4 years ago, and this isn't a criticism of the banks, 4 years ago, the banks were going out of their way to say, we'll give you 100% bond and we'll even give you transfer fees, okay? And they were pushing for business. Now, of course, it's a different matter entirely. And therefore that has created the problem in our society, in our industry, because fairly, without being able to give you a figure of 10, 15%, a substantial percentage of homes fall through for no reason other than the banks are saying that client should not buy this house at this price with that indebtedness. So the banks are doing what they can. They have that policy. We're asking the banks to open up, but they're not going to do it because they've been bitten once and they're not going to be bitten again.
For somebody watching you right now and they just need a piece of advice, pensions or property, what would you say?
Sure. Loretta, that's a question that I don't think anybody can answer. Pensions or property. You've got to understand what your living costs are. You've got to understand where you are. Pensions or property. 6 months ago, and I hope the economists won't mind when I'm saying this, 6 months ago, every single economist was saying by the end of this year, and certainly by the beginning of next year, there were going to be interest rates hikes. Today, every single economist are saying the chances are there's going to be an interest rate reduction, if not by the end of this year, certainly by next year. So you ask about pension or property. I will say this, I very often ask my buyers, are you buying for long term or are you buying for short term? If you're buying for 1 or 2 years, better you don't buy, rent, and put away that money, etc., and do what you can. But long term, I think it's a combination of both. Don't overstretch yourself. Don't get too far into debt now, subject to your age, of course, Loretta, and make sure that you put away for the days ahead.
Right, these are pearls of wisdom that we're getting from the founder of Jawitz Properties, Eskel Jawitz. Besides property, he has a love for philosophy, for jazz and opera. We're going to find out more after the break. Do stay with us.